Your number is still in my contact file. I don't know why. Well, I do. It is a tiny, sad something to cling on to. A bit longer. A little bit longer.
In April 2019, Martyn Watson and his parents became concerned that they hadn't heard from his sister. They went to her house and Martyn found the bodies of both his sister Nancy and his brother-in-law. It was a double suicide.
I ran out of that room. My parents were coming in. I tried to stop my parents going in, but my dad pushed by me. I stopped my mum going in. And then I followed my father back into the house, and he was sat over Nancy, and then I just held my mum. We went outside and rang the police. It was a huge shock because it was the last thing you thought somebody like my sister would do. We did find out later that they had severe financial problems, which is what led them to both kill themselves. After a couple of weeks, the shock wore off and I went into like an incredibly deep grief, shock, horror. It's unimaginable what happened, and it lasted for a year at least. Physically I felt dreadful. I'd wake up in the middle of the night shaking, I'd be retching, but I went straight back to work after it happened because I didn't know what else to do. I was self-employed, I had my own little business. And I somehow got through it.
Nancy loved horses and kept one at this stable in Kirkengate in Wakefield. When her ashes were scattered here, the stable owner said she was looking for volunteers, so Martyn put himself forward. He ended up looking after his sister's horse, Rosie, and forming a deep bond that would help with his recovery.
It was a huge connection. Nancy loved the horse more than she loved me, and I don't, you know, people are like that with their pets, which I didn't mind. So I loved the horse, although the horse didn't particularly love me, and we grew up, we became friends, and it meant a lot to me. And when the horse passed a couple of years ago, it was dreadful, to be quite honest, you know, so there you go. Cropping clover and deftly leaving nettles and dock leaves, our bond growing. Rubbing and stroking your broad chestnut back where my sister once sat. We amble back to your field, two old friends, united in something neither of us will ever understand. I read a book by Nick Cave called Faith, Hope and Carnage, and he talks about the grief of his own son. And how when he got over it, and how he felt he became a better person, with more empathy, more kindness, and more love of life. And that's happened to me, partly through being here with the horses. It's really hard to explain, but I've never been more content in my life.
Martyn had never written poetry before, but as he managed his grief over a 4-year period, they began to emerge.
It was so terrible at one point, I just had to write it down. It'll make it a bit easier, you know, and it does. And I actually wrote notes down on my phone. And over a long, long period of time, they started looking like poems on a page. And I editing and changing and chopping and blah, blah, blah. Eventually I thought, right, I'm gonna publish these. To be honest, I don't know what made me think it.
He published a book named after his sister, with all proceeds going to Suicide Prevention UK. To raise awareness, he wrote to several celebrities, including Stephen Fry, who was so impressed he was happy to recite one.
To be a poet, one must in time oblige to make your stanzas rhyme. A learned scholar lectured me, and like a fool I did agree. When you choose a subject matter, or wealthy patron one must flatter, it's much more satisfying if you have flowing couplets like I do.
It was unbelievable, and I have written to a few celebrities since then, but nobody's got back to me yet, so Stephen Fry is a god at the moment. It was fantastic, and he did a good job of it as well. You have the lips of Salome and the eyes of Cleopatra. The smell of hot, fresh horse muck, so rich, so sweet, but not something I would care to eat.
In the UK, someone is lost to suicide every 74 minutes, according to Suicide Prevention UK, who have nothing but praise for Martyn's efforts.
To use his grief in a way that it benefits somebody else is brilliant. It says a lot about him that he's managed to use those feelings and his recovery journey from grieving around his sister and loss from suicide, and use those towards something positive and productive to help other people.
Martyn still volunteers at the stables. Through his passion for the animals and through his poetry, he's learned about overcoming the unthinkable, and it's knowledge he's happy to share.
You've just got to try and ride the grief if possible, accept it, live with it, know it's going to be there for a long time, but also know that eventually the grief will, even though you think it won't, even if you're reading 5 stages of grief to see which stage of grief am I at now, because that's what I did, it will eventually end. Or it won't end, it'll always be there, but you can live happily with it. And to a funny part of me is glad that sadness is going to always be with me, because it means my love for my sister is always going to be there as well, if that makes any sense.
Martyn has no ambitions to write any more poetry. He said all he needed to say. He just hopes it makes a difference, and it shows that even after unimaginable tragedy, life is still worth living. Adam Fowler, ITV News, Wakefield.